This is Nom Nom, a storytelling podcast connected to Enroot, where we explore how food, memory, culture, and belonging intersect. At Enroot, we often say that food is one of the oldest technologies of belonging. Across cultures, people gather around meals to share stories about where they came from, who they love, and what has shaped them. These conversations are really just that, more like sitting down over a meal and at the table. I'm really excited for today's conversation with Chef Beau MacMillan, also known by many as Beau Mac. He's a chef many people know from television, including beating Bobby Flay on Iron Chef America, from his time leading kitchens like Sanctuary Resort, previously ran operations for Clive Collective and the new restaurant Concept Kala in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's also known just for the way he shows up in the culinary world more broadly. And what I'm most interested in is what sits underneath all of that. What shapes his relationship to food, to people, and to the experiences he creates for others. And as Chef Beau has shared previously a few years ago, how he creates emotional experiences with food. Nom, 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 nom. So thanks again for joining us, Chef Beau.
I am honored to be here. So looking forward to it.
Love it. Thank you so much. So we're going to start with a warm up. It's just quick fire questions. First thing that comes to mind is an either or a both and. I'll let you decide that. And then from there, we'll start with the questions. Okay, great. So first question, coffee or tea?
I'm a coffee guy all day long.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
I'm savory.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Early mornings or late nights?
Used to be late nights. Now it's early mornings.
How early is early for you?
I'm probably up by 5 every day.
Okay, that's early. That's legit.
Yep.
Okay, one ingredient you could never live without.
Jeez, it's going to be olive oil or salt.
I mean, those are good. Cooking at home, cooking in a restaurant, or eating out?
I love all three, but cooking at home, there's something about it that I love the most.
I'm sure your family appreciates that.
Yeah.
And then how about the last one being a dish you could eat every single day?
A dish I can eat every single day. So I get on my little runs, but gumbo is something New Orleans it's my New England clam chowder, which I love.
Yeah,
So
right.
I didn't want to say that because it's too, with my accent, it's too there. But
Yeah.
I get made fun of when I go to New Orleans because I'm like, I won't go to a restaurant and not try their version of their gumbo. I love it.
I love that. So it's not something you have to make yourself, just something you could eat every single day.
Yeah, every day. I mean, and also too, as I grow in food, like just beautiful Japanese fish done omakase style. Like, I think when people used to ask me years ago where it'd be for me, I would say Italy. Like if I had to only eat one cuisine, I
Yeah.
think it's more Japanese now. I think that it's just, there's something about the food that's just so nourishing and fresh. I spent time in Korea. So, things kind of change and you evolve,
Sure.
Yep.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you for that. So the last question, we're going to go a little bit deeper and then kind of kick off from there. It's a question we often ask our guests. It's
Yeah.
what meal or food, but what meal reminds you of home?
I had to do some heavy thinking on this one. It's really childhood stuff, and if I had to define it, because I went back and forth, like clam chowder, I'm a New Englander, that's just, I was born in Portland, Maine, raised in Massachusetts, right?
Right.
So whenever I do get home, like I cannot go without having a beautiful, like I went to the Sail Loft in Boston last time I was in town and it blew my mind. You know what I mean? I was just like so good. And it's like mother's milk. But there's a dish, and I don't know, we talked about Quebec yet. My grandmother, Tortilla is also something else. Like I have these two little lives of like Montreal, Quebec, and New England, Massachusetts. You know what I mean? So those are actually breaking down. When I think about Tortilla and I think about it takes me back to my childhood in Quebec with my grandparents, my father's side of the family, and stuff like that. And there's so much meaning to all of that as well.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I hope we get into that a little bit more as well. All right. So let's start with, what first shaped the way you think about food?
Well, you know, I think what shaped it for me was it was actually hospitality first. And, you get into it. I think one of the most ultimate acts of love is giving, right?
Mm,
And when someone takes time to care for you, my
yeah.
grandmother was that person, and
Yeah.
when I went to visit her as a child, I used to wake up in the morning and I hope I could beat my sister down to the kitchen before she woke up so I could have my time with my
Time.
grandmother alone. And she would
Yeah.
make me a cup of tea, or she'd make me cinnamon toast with powdered sugar, or she'd make me something. But what I learned from her was just what a beautiful person she was. And
Mm,
all of her acts of making sure everyone was first, and that's the spirit of gracious hospitality, so
yeah.
that really was, it made me feel so warm, made me feel good. That feeling, that emotion
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
there. And I had such a love for it. And, I don't even really know if she loved to cook. It's just something that she did because she loved the
Mm,
people before.
yeah.
And so I had that as a child, and I had some aha moments in food. Like I was in Maine one time, I remember at a very young age, I went up to a little town called Dover Foxcroft, and we picked blueberries and we churned them in an outside old wooden hand cranked mill with ice and salt and made blueberry ice cream.
Wow.
And I remember knowing my life changed at that moment, going like,
Mm,
how can this happen? How can you just do this like this? It was unbelievable. So I had those
wow.
moments coming through. And then I think honestly, when I was around 12 or 13 years old, one of my best friends, Mark LaRanger in Plymouth, Massachusetts, his mom was from Rome, Italy. And I used to go to
Mm,
Mark's house. We would want to play basketball. Mark was an athlete. He'd be working out. He'd like, I have to finish weightlifting and all this stuff. And I was always so curious. His mom was always upstairs and she was always cooking. Always. The house was radiated with aroma and smell. And I remember being invited to his family table and I was intimidated. Like my mom was a single mom, so we got hamburger helper, we had shepherd's pie and burgers, and it wasn't gourmet, and I remember sitting down and having dinner with his family, which I longed for. Like I was like, do you
aw.
do this every night? This
Every
mom,
day. Yeah. Yeah.
dad sits down, your family, you sit down. And
Mm,
she was a teeny with she just it's just I'm there with goosebumps now. And I remember eating that plate of pasta and she made me another plate. She'd be insulted if you wouldn't take a second plate. And I remember getting home that night and I was like mad at my mom for like a week. I'm like, you have been holding out on us. Like this is what food can be. So it came in so many different areas. But for me, what it
mm,
was, if you break it down to its core, it was family and it was love. It was That's what I yearned for. I yearned for get-togethers. I yearned for
mm.
sharing, breaking bread with people. And I knew food could be a love language and become my first language. And you said, you think about this life and you think about how people get so disconnected from their own sensibilities,
Ah,
right? From the little things in life that are free that God gave us. And what I can tell people is no matter how far you are apart, if you truly can really sit down together and eat and break
yes.
the bread, you will find how close you are, more
Yes.
so than how far you are apart. In any walk of
Absolutely.
life, in any part of the world, it's universal. And that's
Mm,
who we are as humans. And we have to celebrate that.
yeah.
What you're doing is special. You know what I mean? It's like you get, it really truly is. It's just, I still now try to slow down, and my food has become more simple and in the craft because it's more about, quality and do that. And really, like you said, it's just enjoy the process, enjoy it. It's people take it for granted. They have to race here. They got to go there. They've
Right.
got to rush here. They got a deadline there. They don't have time to
Yeah.
do this. They got to pick
Right.
up food. They got to call it in, mail it to the no, you know what I mean? It's like have a garden, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Forage, grow your tomatoes in your backyard and
Right.
slice tomatoes with salt and olive oil on them, and you're
Yeah.
gonna know there's a big difference in this world, and that's what's here for us all.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. It's so right on. I mean, I don't think I remember. I've always loved tomatoes, and I remember the first time I had it fresh out of the garden, and I was like, "Wait a minute,
Yeah,
this is what it really tastes like." And we
yeah,
can we can just do that in the backyard for part of the year out here. But
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. How old were you when you made that blueberry ice cream?
Must have been about 6 years old.
Okay.
6 years old. It was my mom had been dating a guy named Cass, and his parents lived in a little town called Dover Foxcross. Now I lived in Portland, Maine. So picture driving like three, 3 hours into the woods, right? Like that's Maine. Like in Maine, you'll be like, "Where's that road go?" And the guy will be like, "Don't go nowhere. Stays there year round." You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
that type of place. But two like iconic moments in my life were going up there and making that blueberry ice cream. And the second time they're like their road to their house was like a 3 mile road uphill. And they had one of those old like metal runner sleds. Remember those old ones like rose
Yes.
with the handles? And it
Yeah.
was an icy road. And I got on that sled at like, I don't know, 7 years old or whatever it was and ran and jumped on that sled. And I rode a 3 mile road down on ice. It was I had to walk back, but it was like one of the
The
greatest sled
best.
rides I'd ever experienced in my life.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
Probably it sticks with you, you know what I mean? But
Of
yeah, that was
course.
blueberry ice cream was one of my biggest. And then, you know, I did a lot of short order cooking in high school. Like I was a class clown. I was a very social guy. I had ADD. I was getting into trouble late. And one of my guidance counselors was like, dude, Mac, get out of here. Like 1 o'clock, find a job. You're gonna get kicked out of school. You're getting into too much trouble. You're disturbing
That's
everybody,
interesting.
all this stuff. And I had a buddy of mine, his uncle gave me a job at the Plymouth Plantation of all places. And he just had a
Gonna
little
track your bit.
cafeteria. And I was a busboy. And I got to eat clam chowder and, take my breaks. And I was like, I know I want to cook. Joe, please let me cook, and stuff like that. And that's where it really started. But when I was
Mm.
17, I got this job for a chef named Francois Demulog at a restaurant called the Cranbrook Tea Room, which was the best restaurant for miles from where I was from. And I remember sitting across from him and he was interviewing me in a full chef's garb with a chef's toque on. And I'm like, this dude takes this stuff seriously. You know what I mean? Because like for me, everything I'd been cooking was like potatoes, bacon, and heavy cream, or it had a lemon wedge with kale, purple kale, and tartar sauce, and it was deep fried. And
Hmm.
I worked for him for a year. This guy was a god. And I can tell you, like, I remember filling out my application and he came by and he goes, "Can I offer you a piece of cake?" And I was like, "Oh, no, thank you. No, I didn't want to be, and then I realized instantly, I'm like, did I screw up? Like maybe, I should have put the cake. Like, what if I insulted him, And so he back around and he goes, "You sure don't want a piece of cake?" I got a second chance. I said, "Sure, I love a piece of cake," right? Wasn't a big cake guy. I'm a savory guy.
Right?
But the cake down and I'm filling out my application. I remember where I was sitting and I remember looking at the cake and it just looked like a beautiful crafted, beautifully cut chocolate cake that was layered with, cake and then great frostings that kind of turned a little and then the top. And I'm making sure I'm not messing up my application, which is like reading the scientific chart to me in high school. Like, screw this up. But I grabbed my spoon and I ran it through that cake and I just dipped through and it went through so effortlessly. And I took
Mm.
one bite of this cake. And I've told this story. It's not the first time. I just, in the moment, my thought process was, oh my God, if I can be half as good as this cake, I'm going to be somebody. I couldn't
Wow.
get over. And so through that part of it, when you talk about like where it really starts, like this mentor, Francois, he was in my life for this part of my life and lit a spark in me that just blew my mind.
Wow.
To me, he was God. Like when he went back to Chicago and left the restaurant, I was going down to Johnson Wales. I was devastated. I wanted to follow him. Like this is your, you know what I mean, and stuff. And I lost touch with him over the years. And years later, after a lot of my own success, I tried to find him and reach out. I could never find him. The story is crazy, but I ended up finding him through help and getting him back into my life and
Oh.
actually getting him back into the cooking world. He was making wine. And so it's like
What?
a circle,
Chills.
very full circle thing. What's crazy is you think about this. I was only 17 when I worked for him. And then I went on with my life for the next 20 years. I didn't talk to him. He went all over the world. So when I contacted him, he had to struggle to remember who I was, right? And
Hmm.
what's crazy was I was delivering him the quotes that he told me that his mentor taught him.
Oh
So
my
he knew that was
gosh.
for real, and so luckily I got the guy back in my life, right? I invited him to
Mm.
sanctuary at the time. I have this beautiful space. His wife is pregnant, and they're naming their son Beaumont. beautiful mom.
Oh,
But he has a son named Beau, right?
that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
For me, Francois was I had learned so much from so many different mentors in my life that I from Chuck Wiley to Jeff Jackson to Gary Clausen to Jackie Pluton to just guys that were just brilliant chefs. But Francois was like on a level of food that he could just make food. You could taste the food and go like, what the hell happened? Like, you know what I mean? Like what just this guy was gifted. And so it's crazy to know that a lot of these people are still in my life. And Jeff
Yeah.
Jackson from Chicago just went with me to cook at Naples, but I brought my family back to Canada, to Quebec. And Francois lives in St. Albans, Vermont. It's about an hour south of Montreal now, an hour and 20 minutes. And we went and had a beautiful pasta with him. He cooked
Oh,
mayonnaise. He has a garden with 150 different things in it. And to this day, it's just every time I talk to this guy, I would, if he said, Beau, I need you here and you're going to shuck oysters for the next 2 days and peel shrimp and peel potatoes, I'd be like, what time do you need me?
oh,
You know
that's
what I mean?
sweet.
Yeah,
That's
of
amazing. Oh, it's so incredible. It's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Do
course.
you do you feel like it was at that time that you started realizing like cooking or that, cooking itself became something more than food for you? Like it's like this art
It
and there's
was
technicalities and
exactly right. And it really came with the power of taste. Like when you're 17 and he's like, go home tonight and read the first, page of Le Repertoire de la Cuisine and come back and recite that to me. Or Beau, like you're going to learn how to make this sauce through these three tests and certain things and then, he was, Francois was the one who said, his mentor, Louis Satchmarry, for the first 2 years, I shared my shoes with my roommate, you know what I mean? So
mm,
he could work and experience comes first, money comes later, and the things that I remember he said, and just, he took things seriously. And the thing of it was everything he made for like, if you came to the restaurant, we did 30 people a night. There wasn't a guest that left that wasn't like, Francois, that was the best rack of lamb I've ever had in my life. So
mm,
he would trim the rack of lamb, season it, sear it, deglaze the pan. We were picking up soups. The menu changed nightly to order. Like I did vegetables, and then I had to go clean dishes, and then I had to come back and heat the potato up, and and I could help him plate or give him the stuff for him to plate and go out. It was just him and I in the kitchen. Like and you got somebody who's a G, like he was a
yeah,
straight up gangster. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Worked for unbelievable
old
guys. At
school.
21, he ran the bakery restaurant in Chicago for Louis Satchmarry, his mentor. Like Francois, to this day, I'm sure when I lost him, I thought, I can't get in touch with him because he's living in France and he only writes letters. He doesn't have a phone and he gardens and he raises pigs and he's, making charcuterie, like, you know what I mean? And smoking weed.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. And
the life.
yeah, to get him back in my life and just, to have somebody that I can go like, how do you do this still?
Mm,
5, but you never stop learning in this business. I've learned more too from the people that have worked for me. So yeah, I really thought that point in my life when I realized the power of food,
yeah.
that's what it was for me. He was at a level that was uncommon in the Plymouth area of New England style cuisine. Like it was
Hmm.
elevated. And I thought, oh my God, I want to be able to possess that. I live to this day still. And, I'm a guy who has always tried to remain humble. Like people will say, oh, Beau's, I love getting compliments. Like, you're on TV, you're the same as in life. And that's what life's about, right? It's like, you got to help people out. But I do live for somebody going like, that was the best scallop dish I've ever had in my life. Or that when people used to come into Elements, like they're like, we're from New York and we didn't realize we could get this food this good in the desert. Like those moments,
Right.
they fill me. It's not like I don't need an
Mm,
award or like, whatever and stuff. I need guests that are like, how did that dessert, like, looking at you like you're somebody, it makes me feel so much pride in my team and in that thing.
right.
And yeah, my career objective could say like beautiful people, beautiful places, beautiful food. That's it.
I love that. That's beautiful. No, that's so beautiful. Wow. And then, what we didn't talk about is, where I live now. However, I was living in the South Shore for the last 6 years. So you keep bringing up Plymouth, and I was like, why was this restaurant? I was living in Duxbury, and I'm like, where was this restaurant when I was there? Because it sounds absolutely
It,
amazing.
it has a history. I think it's sold recently. And by the way, Duxbury, like Island Creek oysters, like
Right?
mother's milk to me. You know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah,
ordering them
they're
in the
great.
desert 15 years
Are
ago here.
you? That's
Yes, yeah.
great. I love that.
There's no other oyster I don't think I like more, So, but yeah, the Cranbrook Tea Room, how I heard about this, it's in Carver, Mass. For
Hmm.
all of you listeners that don't know Carver, it's like just picture a massive cranberry bog in the woods, and like that's what you have in Carver, Mass. And there was a little place that this beautiful lady had an antique shop, and it was on a crane brook. It was on a brook, like they had a little mill and stuff. So it was there in an old home she lived in, and she would sell antiques out of her home. Well, she got so popular with people stopping in for antiques, she started making tea sandwiches for them.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Then people started coming and wanting the tea sandwiches. So she just got smart and said, "Why don't I build a kitchen here and I can parlay this and people can have lunch and stuff?" And it became the Cranebrook Tea Room in
Oh,
Carver,
wow.
Mass. And she was smart enough to go out and get a young chef that was incredibly talented and get a small menu going and produce a menu. And we had people coming in like, we had the governor of governor of Massachusetts. We had the mayor of Boston. I cooked for Aerosmith in that restaurant. They lived in
Oh, that's
Pembroke.
right.
Yeah, come in. I had like senior editor for Savoir magazine come in. I remember him
Very cool.
telling Francois that was one of the best meals he ever had in his life. Like, so it was 30 guests a night, but like impeccable food that was cooked a
Right.
la minute, very French in school and very traditional, but just sauces were like blow your mind. I still make sauces that I learned there that today people
Oh,
think I'm a genius. And like, I've been doing this for 30 years, you know what I mean?
right.
And he taught me. So yeah, so that little place I got in because um, two people that came to Plymouth that was big news. The Prime Minister of Japan came one time when I was a kid, and Bo
Wow.
Derek. Derek also came to Plymouth where I read before, but she had dinner at the Cranbrook Tea Room, and it was a big deal. And I was like, "Where's the Cranbrook Tea Room?" And I saw an ad in the paper, and I went in and interviewed. And it was the first time I was interviewed by a chef that was in a white French bistro apron with check pants on, a full-on chef jacket with like his buttons pressed, and a full-on toque. And I was like, this dude takes his shit seriously. You know what I mean?
Right.
I got that job, man. I was done. This is
Oh,
what I'm doing, and I'm going to work as hard as I can.
wow. I mean, you clearly cooked for so many different kinds of people. Is there anything in particular that you've learned kind of, you know, about people from watching them eat or watching them eat your meals?
Um, I think you know, that's a real good question, right? Because when I talk about food, I feel like, I want to give someone credit here, but I'm Jennifer English, who's like a huge foodie in this town, and I have a ton of respect for her. She's in Tucson. I remember having a conversation, and she's like, "Everyone has their own flavor print, and that's like your thumbprint, but it's with
Mm,
food." And it just resonated with me, and I've talked
so
about it
true.
for a long time. Right? Loved it, and I haven't seen her and talked to her for years, but I was just like, "Thank you for giving me that little
Yeah.
nugget because it means the world to me, and it is true." And so through my food repetitiously, even when I was at Sanctuary, I really had a wonderful stage there. But what I knew was I wanted to create blue chip recipes that were consistent and delicious. And when someone said those are the best oysters, by the way, I was known for my Island Creek oysters at
That's
Sank.
so
I had an
great.
Asian oyster Rockefeller, right? And when they took it off the menu after I left, like the town went nuts. I had people calling my partners saying, "Tell Bo to put it on the restaurant at the new restaurant." Like they were freaking out. So that's how much food touches people. But I
Yeah.
also know I know like you can cook 20 pieces of sea bass and 20 people will say that was unbelievable. But one person's going to say it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Sure.
So I think back to the question, for me was I think more so trying to understand what people want. You're lucky that you can validate, right? You're lucky that you
Mm,
and there is now great sources through everybody's can write a review now and be a writer, but I really think that the answer to the question is I even go back to my truest form. I have two 6-year-olds, so I think it's staying true to like the sharpness. If you don't cook a lot, you lose some of that. And if
mm.
you don't eat a lot, you lose some of that. So it's like, how much fat do you trim? Like, how well seasoned is it? Like, if I burn a hot dog at my house, my 6-year-olds are gonna be the first ones to be like, "Dad, you messed us up." Like, you know what I mean? what I mean? It's
Always
like
count
there's
on
some
them.
feedback that you get in the world. So I think for me is what I've learned later on in life, and I'm taking a long time to answer this, and I'm sorry, but it's like
No, you're good.
it's restraint is one of the most powerful things. Like true art,
Mm,
in addition to canvas, is almost like when there's nothing left to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. So
mm,
I think you really gotta, if you really, it's don't let yourself F it up by trying too hard. And from
mm.
even judging competitions now, and when I look at somebody and judges, I'm like, I'm not on there to judge someone and get a soundbite in about how well I look with my, whatever. I'm going like, if this is a true cook and this guy had the chance to make this one more time, or he really had the chance to make this, he's going to say he was only millimeters away from having something extraordinary here. But this is, you know what I mean? So I think that's
Yeah.
where I think it is like, don't let yourself mess it up. Stick with great quality, stick with food that you know and love. You know what I mean? And care for the technique. Through that process, we
Mm,
talk all the time. I've been blown away in food, and I said this in multiple times. I've been to Michelin star. I've been to some of the best restaurants in the world, or and had 4 hour, 5 hour experiences where I was enlightened. There's
hmm.
the molecular side of life, and there's the science in food and the art of food. Emotionally, if you have an experience like that and it speaks to you, it can transcend you. It can bring you back to
Absolutely.
home. It's sentimental. It can do all that stuff. But like the same thing, I think you can achieve that at the highest form of cooking. You can also achieve that in a roadside smash burger and French fry stand, somewhere between Saint Jovit and Laurentians, or you know what I mean, or down in the
Yeah.
Bahamas eating conch chowder on an island that you pulled the boat in, and there's a Caribbean woman that's cooked that for 30 years, and
Yeah.
you taste that, and you're in a different space. That's love. That's art. That things don't change. That's how it's done, and you have to appreciate that.
There was so much there. There was just so many like, yes, and that. And then it
Chew on
reminds me
that
of
for a
this.
while. Like,
I mean, I will be there for a while, but I really appreciate the flavor, what you call it?
flavor print.
Like
We
the
have it.
flavor print. I love that because I know something. I say I'm a savory person, and that's true. I don't like sweets. Like,
Mm,
I'm not, for whatever reason, I don't know if I've told myself I don't like sweets because it might not be good for me. I don't enjoy the flavor of anything sweet. And people think
wow.
that's like the weirdest, strangest thing, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know why. It's just something that's me, right? And it's my flavor print. Um, and then I was even just thinking, I was talking to a friend this morning about their kid, and I was asking them, like, how do they eat? Do they eat everything? And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
they eat everything. And that was so strange to me because of like, I heard kids don't like to eat all the things, so it's just, but like, you
Yeah.
saying that makes me feel like of course we're individuals, and of course we have different likes and dislikes. And of course, like, why is that strange? And we
There's
definitely
no right
feel
or
like
wrong.
yeah, everyone likes X, or everyone, no one likes pineapple on their pizza. Let's not go there.
I
But
can't stand rules though. I really can't.
yeah,
Like I'm sorry if I want to drink a $700 bottle of Latour and eat pork fried rice with it, who's to tell me I can't? You know what I mean? And like that's what I learned in this food.
yeah,
When someone comes in and orders a well done steak in the restaurant, you can't be a chef if you're not upset about that. I'm like, bullshit, dude. That guy's dropping $100 on a steak. Well done steaks are the easiest steaks to cook. So shut up and make him the steak he wants for his money.
that's
He
what he
deserves
wants,
that, or she wants. So
or she
and
wants.
it's
Yeah,
funny because you said the sweet thing, and what's crazy is like for me on the sweet side too, is I do enjoy sweets now as I'm getting older. Like I never used to order dessert at a restaurant. Now the guy's like, oh, maybe just get one or two. I blame it to my wife, but I get a spoon and like no. But I remember like traveling to Florida. I started my career in Boca Raton, and I worked with some of the best Haitian guys in this French kitchen,
mm,
rock star workers, right? And we had a mango tree in the parking lot. They knew exactly what date that those mangoes were going to be the ripest. And I remember they brought in a mango. They brought mangoes that we could use them in the restaurant, or they could take them home, whatever. And they gave me a mango, and I got to take a ripe mango off a tree that was picked 20 minutes ago. And I bit into the pith of the mango and pulled the flesh of that mango off. And, like
yeah.
that to me was one of the most incredibly just monumental experiences in my life when I
Yeah.
tasted that. You know what I mean? And I just think that those are the things like passion fruit or certain things. There's so much out
Yeah.
there. So, you know, I'm never going to tell my kids how to eat, but I'm going to tell them to try it. You know, I'm
Yeah.
going to tell them keep
Yes.
trying it. You know, try it. And you know, I've gotten compliments. I didn't think one of my best compliments I got. I was talking to this on the golf course earlier to a friend of mine. Was like people telling me like, you know, I hate scallops, but I love your scallops. I'm like,
Mhm.
you don't hate scallops. You just haven't had ones you like
Right.
yet. And you might like mine, but you might 20 more. So please, you know, don't sell
Yes.
yourself short of
Hmm.
bringing in and understanding, because this all takes work. You know what I mean? From
Yeah.
your palate to
Yeah.
sweet, savory, salty, you know, and how your brain transcends it. So
Totally.
I'm glad that I've one is I love food, I love people, I love culture, ethnicity, everything there. And I'm realizing this time in my life that if someone says you want to have a new experience, I'm like, whose car are we going to take?
I
You're,
love that.
yeah,
Noted.
yeah.
No, I really appreciate you sharing that. And it is a muscle. I mean, even to your point, like I do love fruit. And
Mm.
the minute I hear fruit and food, I'm like, "Ah, that just sounds so strange. I'll try it, but it is a muscle that I haven't practiced because I didn't grow up eating those flavors. So it is,
My
I that resonates a lot.
my buddy owned a winery in Russian River. It's called Wattle Creek. His name is Christopher Williams. Great guy. He goes, I want you to come out and cook for my members, 60 people, high end dinner. First time I'm going to like the Napa Sonoma Valley or whatever, right? And I instantly got it. I was like, I get why husband and wife teams go by a little 40-seat restaurant and they have a garden out back.
Right.
I got there and I traveled with a bunch of my food, so it makes it easy with my team. I had a couple crew members there, and I was like, "Hey, Chris, I know there's a market here. I'm like, what is the best market? I need to go pick up some vegetables, some certain stuff." He was like, "Beau, have you been to the garden? Have you gone to see the garden?" I'm like, "You have a garden?" He's like, "Dude," he's like, "Go to the garden." Like, I went to the garden and I changed half of my menu. I literally saw a pear hanging from a tree, thought it was fake. It was like the Garden of Eden. And I was like, the pear was so pretty hanging and it's perfect. And I picked it and I ate it. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like, how have I missed this for so long? Like, I'm in the desert too. You know what I mean? And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
it is earth. And so, like, that's just to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. No, I hear you absolutely. No, I do. I do. Well, so you mentioned hospitality earlier, um, and how that's really kind of the seed that was planted for you so long ago. What would you say great hospitality feels like? And not, not just from the outside, but from the inside of the room. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Um, and when do you think people maybe feel most seen in the dining experience?
That's a good question, like a big bite question. I'll just try to answer that to the best of my ability. I I really value hospitality when it feels genuine and not forced or trained. You know what I mean?
Mm,
I feel like in hospitality, although I do really love restaurants where there's a universal language, even though we have our own prints. There's been some. I think you have to understand the goals. I think you have to understand the love, and I think you have to be able to tagline that in. I think that's where people get really, really successful because they include their teams. They make them feel really
mm,
part of it. So for me, what does it feel like? It feels warm. It feels genuine, and it almost feels like if you and I, haven't known each other for 30 years, there's something wrong because it's that connection you can make through that love of
mm.
hospitality and through the warmth of it all that goes like, something I talked to a friend of mine. I know I can pick up the phone 4 years from now and you remember it. Can I give you another little small example? A cool,
Please.
cool story I want to share with you. Um, my buddy Chuck Hughes is a big time chef in Montreal, right? Owns a place called Garmanger. He's like the Bobby Flay of Montreal. Good looking dude, very successful, speaks French Canadian, does cooking with maple syrup, TV shows, all this stuff. But he's a G, he's a baller, right? He runs he runs He runs an event called Osheaga, which is the Lollapalooza of Quebec, right?
Wow.
Big bands coming in. I pack 8 of my chef friends from Phoenix. I take them to Osheaga. Eating Montreal with 8 chefs is gluttony, right? It was like drinking, eating, what a fest, right? But we go to Osheaga. He gets us all unbelievable wristbands, so you can go see Outkast, Nick Cave, Jack White, whoever you want to go see, right? And Chuck runs Artist World, so we had passes for Artist World. We felt special. He did all the catering for every artist that was playing on Osheaga, and there's some huge names. You get into this little Artist World, I'm like, dude, look at all these guys. What do they get? They get badass trailers. They can have a massage. They can get a new pair of sneakers. There's ping pong. The musicians are hanging out, But here's a cool part. He set up the camp for like 4 days while they're there. You can have everything you want. Like if you want a juice bar, he's got it. If you want to have wood-fired pizza, he's got it. If you want a rotisserie whole hog at barbecue, he's got it. If you want freshly shucked oysters, he's got it, right? And so I think of how smart this is because he brings in his people from all over. He creates this venue where they have everything they need and they love it. And then he has these 2 grand tents so the artists can hang out. There's 2 of the best, cocktail bars in Montreal with their bartenders shaking great drinks for these guys and beer. So I'm in heaven. I love music. The only people I want to see were Jack White and Outkast. Everybody else was at the thing. I'm like, I'm going to eat and drink and hang out. So I'm at the oyster bar and I'm like, I can't just hold people up crushing oysters. So I give the guy who's shucking oysters, who knows me, he works for Chuck. I'm like, here's $60. I'm like, when you get a chance, make me a platter of oysters, right? I'll sit the thing. When you have time, no rush. I'm just going to have a beer and I'm sit. So I'm sitting there by myself at a picnic table. All my other chef friends are out listening to music. And these dudes drop like 80 oysters on me. Like they got it tricked out with lemon and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there like, are you guys for real, bro? Like this, right? I'm sitting there eating my oysters and people are looking around me and they're like, who the hell's that dude? Like this, right? Look at these guys. I'm like, dudes, get over here, right? New Brunswick oysters. We start eating, crushing oysters, talking, having fun. I'm like, hey, I'm like, if you guys are ever in Arizona, are you musicians? Do you guys play whatever? He goes, yeah, we have a band. We're playing and whatever. And so I go, congratulations, man. What a crazy, awesome opportunity. All this stuff. The guys goes, my name's Samir. And my band's called Young the Giant, right? Don't know any of the music. I'm just like, but you're a dude. We're a dude. We're eating oysters. So I look at Samir and I said, hey, take my number down. And if you're ever in Arizona, I want you to call me. I'll make sure you have any restaurant. You come see me at my hotel, whatever you need. I literally leave. 4 years later, a friend of mine goes, I'm bringing a music festival to Tempe. It's called Innings Fest. And it's going to be like baseball around spring training. And we're going to have musicians. First year, Beau, can you help me get it up and running? I bring in a big catering partner for him to do his, street food trucks, all this stuff. And I also did a few MC events with like athletes, and I had an eating contest and beer drinking and a burger battle and stuff like this, right? I'm there the second day and I read the program and I see headlining is Young the Giant. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm like, that's the guys I met. Maybe I'll sneak over there and I'll try to say hi to them later, but I was trying to set up and be busy. 2 hours later, random text pops up on my phone. Beau Mac, I'm hoping this is still your number. My name is Samir. I met you at Osheaga. We're playing in Arizona. You told me to give you a call. I go, Samir, I'm here. I'm going to come find you. And I went backstage, found him, gave him a hug. That's the power of food. Those are the powers of opening up your hands and sharing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I live for those moments. I live for those moments. And it's people ask me all the time in hospitality, even in this town, they're like, Beau, I give my number to everybody. I'm like, oh, you're here? Here, take my cell phone number. People are like, you're crazy. I'm like, I'm not crazy. That if I can help that person somewhere down the road, you know what that person's going to do? That person's going to bring a 12 top to my restaurant. That person's going to book their daughter's graduation party. That person, anytime someone comes to this town, is going to say, go see Beau and call Beau. That's what reality is. So, I went around the question, I think, in a lot of ways.
Not at all.
I want to feel like I'm home, and I want to feel like I'm family. And that's what I really, I've learned that people, if someone leaves a place that's iconic, whatever, people go, the place has changed. They don't normally say, the food has changed. That can happen or whatever. But they're like, they don't have the same people that are recognizing them anymore. No one knows who I am. It's Cheers. You look at Cheers,
Hmm.
everybody wants to know your name. You know what I mean? So those are
Yeah.
just primal instincts of hospitality. Make someone feel home.
I love that because I was going to ask earlier, like what as a follow up, like what do you do to kind of create that intentionally? And then the more I'm hearing you speak, but also like I shared with you earlier, like, my first experience with you, it's just something you do so naturally. You're just so
Thank you.
good at making people feel seen and just like that feel like connection with you. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you have an answer to like what you do intentionally besides just be yourself, but truly I mean, that really resonated with me as you were sharing.
I love. Try to remind myself that I did something I really loved to do. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the joy in it. People ask me about success. I, I've never, I realize how trying this career can be. I know how hard it can be on you physically. I know, it has
Mm,
its dark places and its light place. I know everything about that. I think the success wasn't an achievement. you know, it's a realization. And when you can work as long as you can in the field that you love and you can make others happy while doing it and you can put in a 10-hour day and enjoy it,
right. Right.
there's your success. You know what I mean?
Right.
That to me is where your success is at. And so, the other thing that I like to do, I'm sorry, I like to recognize people. I think,
Mm,
the old school mentality, I worked in kitchens that were run through fear, and
mm.
a lot of those things. I think now it's like make someone feel valued. It's such a great way to feel, and it builds such character and builds such a great team.
No, I agree. And yeah, we talked about this before. It's just at a time in our lives where things are so separated, and that's probably extra powerful right now. Well, you mentioned sanctuary, and so this question's not just necessarily from that space, but kind of any experience in your life. So, in spaces you've worked and led, like sanctuary, where people come for the experience as much as they come for the food,
Mhm.
what do you think, the role of belonging or connection plays in what you're creating?
I think it's got to start from service from top to bottom. And in that part, I'm an ingredient in the recipe. Like I'll break down sanctuary in a shell. Like we had a magnetic location on the north slope of Camelback Mountain, right? Just mesmerizingly beautiful views, sunset spaces that were very, very helpful. But the thing that we understood is we wanted to be the best, and service was incredibly important in accommodating our guests. That started at the bell stand. We had
Mm.
guys that worked there for 20 years. Lotto is still there today.
Oh,
That
wow.
recognizable face in your first interaction and your first experience to coming down to meeting, the hostesses or checking in at the hotel and getting that was one language in universe. So like
Mm.
the biggest thing when people come to the resort and you would hear that, they would talk about the aesthetics. They talk about the room product or the sheets or the pool or certain things like this, but it's people. If you don't invest in your people, you're nothing without that squad. And that was one thing. My ownership was a baseball team owner, and we understood culture breeds culture, and without it, if you focus too much on the bottom line, it kills it. So we really prided ourselves on investing in the people and caring for the people and understanding what our language was there, and it was about the guests and doing as much as we possibly could within the realms of reality to accommodate their needs and anticipate their expectations, in order to just make it happen. So we were all just a piece. If my concierge group was there for 20 years, my marketing team, down at the spot, everything.
You speak so much about the people and being so centered, around people and what your guests want or need or enjoy. Or what do you think people are really hungry for right now?
Okay, so that's a great question because I see a lot of restaurants. People are hungry for it all right now. I think people sometimes want to be in the place to be seen more. There's a lot of drama with restaurants, and it goes above the original attention span of just unbelievable service and unbelievable food in a great setting. Now they want live DJs. Now they want
Mm,
showboating food. Now they want energy and stuff. And that's not bad. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to dine, you got to know where you go to dine. If you want to be out to see, there's so much to offer and there's so much new. Um, I don't want it to take away from the experience, but I do feel like I do feel like people are so educated so fast. So like, you got to be able to hit on all levels of every sensory level: seduction, intimacy, the beauty, sensation,
Mm.
sensualism, like view, like romantic tables. It's what you're going for. You got to be able to deliver that, but you still have to have unbelievable service, right? And food. But I also feel that's something that can take it a step further is, there's a story behind every sip and there's a story behind every bite. So if your staff is empowered and understands how to give great service, but also can deliver and make an emotional connection genuinely through
Hmm.
either the history of the restaurant and talk about, your team greatly or their lives and do that professionally and connect without overdoing it, it's kind of a wonderful experience.
Yeah, that sounds
I
really
had I had
magical.
servers with me 13 years that, people came for them. Like Sean's
Yeah.
here. Like I had private dining rooms where like, guys, I was just like, I had so much respect for my team that they took care of, 12 people in a 12-course menu and could deliver the wine and they could speak in front of them like it was myself speaking. It made me so proud.
Hmm. That's a testament to you and just the connections you're building. That,
Hopefully, yeah, it's just, it's to a point. And another thing that I can tell you is that I think that, it sounds cliche and certain things like people have to lead, right? You've got to think and create and visionary and all that stuff. But when you really come down to a kitchen, if you got 25 guys in there and they all have a role, they're as important as each one,
yeah,
and if you
absolutely.
can make them feel that way, you know what I mean? It's not about how much they make in that hour, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's really, it's the inclusion, it's the pride, it's the value. And that's what I love.
absolutely.
That's what I really came to realize. It's just like, without these guys, who am I? I can't be me without them. So
No,
yeah, there was a real value of there.
absolutely. And I think it shows through just how you can, how you show up and how you show up for others. And okay, so I'm going to close with the last question. If you could design a meal where everyone at the table felt like they could just let go and connect, where would that be? What would you serve? What would that feel like? Kind of, paint the picture for me.
Um, I think that's great. I think that it would be, you know, I so for me, I love cooking. Later on in my life, I've cooked in great hotels and great venues and great restaurants. I've cooked in some magnificent private homes. So I would say it'd be in an amazing private home with a world class kitchen and maybe smaller intimate dining room, right? But like either stunning views of the Tetons or the Alps, or like or by the way, in the Hawaiian Islands overlooking the water. It's got to be that type of incredible settings. But I think that for me, what's funny is it's not so much the menu in itself. I'd love to create something that is inspired by the people that are at the table,
Mm.
and there's a story to connect with them through that process. There's an unbelievable lineup in from cocktails to champagne to wine through that process. But really, I'm going to get people through the connectivity and the outward thinking of open up, share. And it does take a glass of wine before. So like I ran a couple wine dinners at Sanctuary that to the end, I'm like, if I have another wine dinner where I invite a winemaker in and we talk about the earth and the dirt and how much you love farming, I tried to make this happen, I'm going to shoot myself in the head. Right. So I did a summer series, a summer wine series at Sanctuary where I would only invite 30 people, maybe 25. Here's the deal. I would invite a guest chef, but it wasn't him cooking. I did a 3 or 4 course dinner inspired by him and his food that our people would tell the story and the chef would sit at the table. Then the winemaker would come talk. We would pour the wine and our people would talk about wine for the thing. But through the course, I would come out and tell a story. Then each person at the table would have to tell a story.
I love that.
So kind of what's first we were like, we're not sure how this is going to go.
Yeah.
But after a reception and a first course and a few little storytelling in, people that normally wouldn't stand up, they had to tap on their glass and they could stand up and they would share a story with us.
Beautiful.
Friendships that were made.
Yeah.
I had a lady write me a letter. She's like, Beau, I just want to tell you that I met so-and-so at that table and I run a nonprofit. And that person donated 3 ovens to my, like,
Yeah.
that is what life is about. It's about the
Yeah.
energy. Goosebumps on my arm. It's
Me
about the people.
too.
So I'm saying, like, for me, that room for me is what I live for. It's draw it out of people. It's okay,
Yeah.
to be together. It's okay. There are
Yeah.
Look, right or wrong. We know this in our DNA as a child, right? We can communicate we love food before we can even speak, right? And so bringing back to the sensibilities and certain things like this, I look at it and I go, like, for us is I don't want to be, I don't want to be, I don't want to limit myself in my love for my own beliefs. I have a right to believe anything I want in life, and so do
Hmm.
you. I think we should be able to talk about those things, and whether it's like
Right.
not politics or religion or anything like this, more so
Yes.
just your inhibitions of saying, like, this is the way I was taught, and this is what I did. And
Yeah.
when you open up about stuff like that, I find it incredibly powerful. I realize how much I don't know in life. I find out so many things about people. Look, I just had dinner with my future son's wife's parents, right? They're not
Oh,
married yet.
wow.
I
Okay.
just had dinner with
Congrats.
them last night. Now, my son is dating this beautiful girl from Vermont named Kaylin, right? She's shy, right? My wife and I, and my wife likes to go, she's really shy. And I'm like, you were really shy. You know what I mean? Like, whatever and stuff. So we don't know too much about her, but she's nice and we're opening up and, my son loves her and all this stuff. So we go out to dinner and, the dad, we had lunch with our kids first, and I could see she was a little annoyed and a little blushing and, like, just sensitive because the dad kind of started to brag on her a little bit. And he caught wind of it and kind of backed off, like, and we're like, that's their thing. But we were like at dinner, like, well, what's going on? And her dad showed me a picture of her, and she's probably 60 feet in the air jumping off a mountain on a snowboard. She was one of the top 10 snowboarders
Wow.
in the country for 5 years. And I'm like, Kaylin, how can you not, like, here's somebody that possesses this much talent and you can't even
Right.
get them to talk about it. So
Yeah.
people are very humble and there's humility and certain things like that. And I think, like, one is to do it respectfully and to do it where it's in a nature where you feel safe and you can do that is what I
Yeah.
live for. Food draws that out of you because we share that. It's a common denominator. It's the ultimate
Yes.
breaker. It's the bridge builder. It's the
It
thing. And
is.
I built my career on competing in stressful situations around food on Food Network where knives are thrown at you and this is on fire and you can't use this and you
Right.
got to use a certain thing and you got to do that. And we're like, I love that. It's all great for entertainment, but I
Sure.
just want to have an hour to cook and with people and go, like, look at this unbelievable meal we produced. And then
Absolutely.
sit down and experience that. I live for that. People go, like,
Ugh.
I can't remember people's names, where I was supposed to be. I'm late for the podcast, how to log in, what my password is. Remember when we were in Montreal in 1985 and we went to whatever restaurant, Marcus Samuel's restaurant? I'll be like, yeah, you ordered this. I ordered that. We had this. The server's name
Yeah.
was Joseph. I remember that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And I
yeah.
do. No, I really do. And I really appreciate you saying that. Again, part of the nonprofit, what we are doing is also hosting dinners. And for this very reason, because across a meal, a shared meal, our nervous systems can settle. And so
Totally.
everything kind of after that becomes
Yeah.
this like a
Yeah.
safer place to have these less than superficial conversations. I mean, ideally a lot deeper than superficial. But, around a meal, you're just automatically able to start from this different baseline and it
Am,
brings
am I
people together.
am I hearing you say that we're going to have a collab in the future? Maybe
I would love that. Beau Mac,
we're
don't get me started.
going to show them what's up. Is that what's going to
Oh
happen?
my
I love
gosh,
that.
it's the dream. I mean, for me, the dream is literally bringing people together and having a safe
Yes.
place to have these
Yeah.
conversations. And I think
Yeah.
food's a great starting point for that. So
Such a great
thank you for
starting.
sharing all of that. This was really special. I know that you have to run, but I just so
How do I hug you from inside my
oh, I
computer?
wish. I
Yeah.
wish.
Yeah.
Well, we will next time I see you. But I appreciate not just your work and just the way you show up, the way you think about people. I mean, I think it was so clear in this conversation. People come first for you. So the way we think about people, food, and just what it creates between us. So thank you so much for your time and sharing all
My
that you
pleasure.
did.
I enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you again. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I hope to see you soon.
Okay, hon. Take care.
Bye. And thank you to everybody in the background who helped.
Awesome. Cheers, hon.
Bye.